as I was just stating, that there the third day at noon when there was only 17 of us. And even that third day at noon, our Kapok life jackets, there was supposedly a little tag on it saying good for 48 hours, but the 48 hours already passed. So by the third day at noon, here we have a Kapok jacket on, but it's not holding our heads out of the water. And so we're having to just swim, nearly constantly. And then finally we thought, well, hey, we'll take this thing off and we'll turn it upside down. We are sitting in it. So by sitting in it, it has still enough buoyancy that it's holding our head out of the water a little better, but we're having to swim to keep ourselves erect, or else it'll kind of pitch you in the water, and then you're struggling to get back in that Kapok jacket. And so we're having a terrible time with that. And so it was sometime then that third day we came upon a swell, and we could look off at the starboard at a little ways, and we saw what appeared to be just a raft out there. And we yelled out at whomever out there, and they responded to us. And so here they began to come into our group. And when they came into our group, we noticed that there's a raft, but no one's on the raft. And so they're armed up on that little makeshift of a raft, and they came in, and it consisted of two 40-millimeter ammunition cans, and seemingly it might have been something like an old potato crate, slatted potato crate or orange crate, and they had those lashed together. But what was on the raft was Kapok life jackets. They had taken Kapok life jackets off of boards that already expired, and they'd squeezed those out the best that they could. You can take a sponge, and it's full of water. It won't hold any more water, but you can take it and squeeze it out, and it's going to hold more water. And so that's what they'd done with those Kapok jackets. They'd taken them off of boards already expired, put them up on that little raft in the sun shining 100 degrees, and so they had exchanged those, and they came into our group, and they said that they were swimming to the Philippines. And they asked if anyone wanted to join them, and I said to my Marine buddy, I said, Spooner, I'm going to go with them. And he said, Harrell, if you go, I'm going. So here 2 Marines joined 5 sailors, and we think, we're going to swim to the Philippines. Well, we didn't know it was another 500 mile, but here our group has gone from 80, third day at noon now, only 17 of us. So anyway, we joined them, and we start toward the Philippines. And we made some headway, but then we began to see that later in the afternoon that it was overcast, and we could see, hey, we aren't going to see the sun go down, and therefore we aren't going to be able to see the moon at night or the Southern Cross. So how do we know which way is west? And sure enough, later then that afternoon, it began to get seemingly it was going to get dark through the night. But sometime later that afternoon there of the third day, we came up on a swell, and we could look off at the starboard, maybe a couple of 100 yards or so up and out from us away, and we could see every now and then an old crate would come up. And I called attention to my buddies. I said, just an old crate looks like out there. And there was kind of a compelling influence, say, go and see what that might be. And so I told them, I said, I'm going to swim out and get it. And first they said, well, the shark might get you too. You better off to stay here. And I said, well, we haven't seen any sharks in the last couple of hours or so. I'm going to swim out and get it. So here I'm dog paddling, and I make my way out to that crate. And as I got closer and closer, may I say, there's times when you pray and there's times when you really pray. And I'm praying for water. I'm praying for food. I'm praying for something. And as I got within 6 or 8 feet of that old potato crate, I could see those potatoes in that, floating in the water. And in desperation, I reached for that first potato. And as I got a hold of that first potato, kind of in the agony of defeat, that rot began to squeeze through my fingers. And I thought, oh, my rotten potatoes. And often in my talks, I asked the ladies, I said, you know what a rotten potato smells like? I know what they taste like. And to take that potato and to peel it somewhat with my hands, you don't spit out all of the rot, and you peel it somewhat with your mouth, but you're so desperate for water that even the rot, it has some water in it other than the salt water. And then I began to think like the ant, I may be out here another day, so I peeled off several of those potatoes. I filled my dungaree pockets full of those, and then I began to swim back then to my buddies. And as they saw me nibbling on something with my arm upon that potato crate, several potatoes still in the crate. They holler out, what is it? Rotten potatoes. And they leave the raft, and they came out and joined me, and we had a little bit of a picnic. I often say that all we had to eat was half-rotten potatoes, but no ants to bother us. So anyway, we had a little picnic there, and then it's still so dark that night that later in the night that no way to know which way to go, and so we're just basically hanging on to the raft. And then sometime later that night, we hear voices again, and we responded to them, and they back to us. And after a period of time, just by voice, by sound, hear Lieutenant McKissick, Charles McKissick from Texas. He and I think 5 or 6 sailors maybe were with him. And here they began to come into our group, and after a period of time, then maybe one, and then a minute later another one, and by voice, and they came in, and then there was a certain Marine that had a pocket full of half-rotten potatoes that he shared those with McKissick, and then we began to talk about what we needed to do, and he said, well, we've got to get close enough to the Philippines so that someone will spot us and maybe rescue will come. And we tell him that's what we are going to do, and he said, yeah, but you're not going to push that raft. And we said, yes, we are, because we've got spare tires. And so we shared some of the half-rotten potatoes with them. And then sometime then later that night, I don't know what happened, really, because my mind is playing tricks on me even by now. I'm completely exhausted. I've been awake, so to speak, no sleep for 4 days now. And the next morning, on the fourth day morning, I'm with McKissick and one sailor. I'm not with the raft, and now our kapok jackets are gone. We've been, through the night. They did fairly well, but by morning now they're completely waterlogged, and we're seated in our kapok jackets. And I look over at this one sailor, and looks like his head is dropped into the water. It looks like he's given up. I go over and shake him, and he's just barely awake, and he responds, but maybe the second or third time I checked him, then his head already jumped into the water. So it's just McKissick and myself. And I knew McKissick aboard ship. He was just a peach of a guy, a Navy lieutenant. A lot of times when I would have the watch, and for the orderly, for the captain, McKissick would give me an order to take to the captain. And the greenhorn that I was, I didn't know the nomenclature of all the things that they were speaking about, of something out at a certain distance, traveling a certain way, and so on, and how fast he was going. To repeat all that to take it to the captain, but with McKissick, he would have me to repeat that back to him, and maybe the first time or two I didn't have it right, but he would see to it that I had it right. So he was just like like an uncle, or like a real friend. And he'd see to it that I had it right before I went and told Captain something that was not really right. And so here I'm with him here that fourth day. And he would say to me, hey, Marine, you ever been to the Philippines? No, I've never been there. Well, he promised that once we got to the Philippines that he would take me under wing and so on, and take care of me. But my mind was playing tricks on me in that even though I knew him, knew who he was, and had the greatest respect for him, but to me, he was Uncle Edwin. I had an uncle that was like 2 years older than me. We grew up together, and I called him Uncle Edwin. I can remember many, many times calling him Uncle Edwin. To me, that's who he was. So you know kind of where I'm coming from. And